Great, YouTubers. Thanks so much for joining us. And I wanted to go through a little bit of change that we're making inside the app. And we were doing a little bit of hacking last time, and what we were really trying to do is we were trying to get the market as it stands. Then we're trying to grab a buyer, make a new buyer, and then as the buyer makes his or her own portfolio, we want the prices of stocks to go up a little bit every time they buy a stock, which is kind of realistic to the way that market pricing works. That when there's demand, prices go up, etc. So the fulcrum of this app right now is the build random portfolio, and you can see here that it's changed a bit. So we're actually taking a snapshot of the market and we're sending it to build random portfolio, but then we're actually going to return. We're going to take a snapshot of the market and we're actually going to return a market back to main. And this is a little bit of a imagination, challenge, but technically the market is set right here, and then we can send it and then manipulate it, then we can reset it. So what happens is every time new buyers enter the market, that causes price fluctuation to take place. So if we can put it that way, and we'll prove that it does. So here we actually have a new return variable, and what this does is it changes the method signature. The method signature is just an expression of input and output. That's all a function can do. And of course it has the visibility, and that's all a function is. It's just those three facts. So down here, as I click on market, you can see that I'm returning the market, and Eclipse does a great job of highlighting where market. So your build random portfolio isn't really going to change. This is what you've already done, and you've also done this, but I'm recommending that you change the return type, and then you just go down here and you just go return market, and that will cause for it to compile legally. But here's the change that I want you to enter. Now, frankly, I'm saying go ahead and change the price of the stock that you just bought. So get a random number, and you can get a next double from a random, which is really just a double, like it's a dot something. It's some value between 0 and 1. So it's an extremely small non-integer value that really works nicely when you try to change a price, because it changes from like $12.50 to like $12.75. It's a very minute price change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the price of the stock that I located, and then I'm going to add that new price to it, and I want to print that out just to show it off to prove that it's happening. And then something new that I've done here is I've said, well, really markets are dependent upon some change in pricing. And really what the stock markets, the digital stock markets of today do so well is to create some kind of index or history of pricing. So you can see I did it in a new method right here. It's called the price history. And you can see that I use the add because it's an array list. And I'm going to add the new price to that price history. And then I'm going to display the price history. So let me just jump over there and talk about how that's happening. So I brought back out my stock class, which we have not talked about forever. And I added an array list, right? Your power, the programmer's power tool, like could you imagine being a carpenter without a power screwdriver? No, like that's the name of the game. So you bring out your array list and you call it your price history, right? It's going to be an array list of type double with a big D, which is really just like the decimal value that you're used to. And what I did here, and I don't initialize it, I just set it up as a new array list. So it's defined but not initialized. And then as we use it, we're going to add stuff to it. So you can add pricing to it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do void display price history. It's just a void classic, public. And we're saying for all the doubles inside of price history, double H, go ahead and print that out and add a dollar value to it. So it kind of says, well, prove it. Hey, you just created some new data, prove it. And then eventually we'll silence it, as we kind of take it for granted, if we've tested it a billion times. So let's go ahead and say we'll mark it, rather mainer. Let's go to mainer. Snicker, because it sounds so funny. And let's kind of cleanse this of some of these notes. Make this very compact and legible. You realize that commenting really obstructs the understanding of code to a certain extent. It's almost too good. So let's get this out of our way so that your solution is just very simple and very plain. And so we're going to create that market, create 100,000 buyers, and then for every buyer that we create, we're going to create that portfolio, and then we're going to adjust the market a certain random number of times. And then every time we change the pricing in the market, we're going to update that back to main. So let's save that. You can see the asterisk. Let's save that, and let's give that a run. And this is just going to fly and fly. But if we just terminate and take a look at output, we're going to say, okay, the price of the stock gets changed. And now let's go ahead and print the price history. And what's so glorious, what we're so happy about is that here's the beginning of the price when it first gets made. And then you can see that it walks up a little bit, walks up a little bit. You can see how it jumps up as new demand comes on the market. Now, unfortunately, this is just a bull market. It's just everything's going up. There's nothing that interrupts the growth of this stock. But for a very short moment of time, this stock is growing until it gets to 100, and you can prove that that's the current price of that thing. And you guys, you probably have a better market than I do because I only have two letters. Everything is AA, BB. So if I can just go through that one more time, the build random portfolio is where that's going to take place, where the price of the stock gets adjusted a little bit, and then that new price data gets added to the price history, and then we display the price history. Now, if you compare the complexity of that, you have to realize that that's probably a pretty modest bit of programming, but the strategic value that it provides us is pretty nice, right? That's kind of a nice piece of brickwork. So I'm going to leave it there and let you make those additions. And when we come back next time, we're going to see what do we want to do next? What do we want to take advantage of? Frankly, if you guys have the ability to increase pricing, then probably new buyers that enter the market can decide whether they can either buy the stock from the IPO holder or they can buy it from the open marketplace. And it will kind of give us the ability to make this for sale market a little bit richer. Because frankly, and I hate to overspeak this, but if the price of your stock is gone up, you're in a position of making money at that point because you hold something that you got cheaper than the current price. So if you were to find a buyer for it, you would make money on your holdings. And so now we're entering an episode where we have a little bit of resemblance to real stock markets, where you have a lot of algorithmic computer-based trading taking place. But you have to say, well, okay, when we get back, well, how do we make money in this market? And we really need to, put stuff up for sale that frankly is worth more now than when we bought it, right? And what's cool about your market is that you've got this cool price history where, frankly, and let me grab this back, we should be able to visualize, price change. That's an interesting array of historic pricing data, some fluctuation, So anyway, yeah, all right, so that's there. Thanks a lot. Remember to hit subscribe.